Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President and CEO of the George W. Bush Presidential Center, Ken Hirsch.
Good evening. I hope you all enjoyed the wonderful program today. Our goal is to make an impact, do work that is relevant and important for the country and important for North Texas. And it's an honor for me to be part of this phenomenal team. What we do here is built to last. And that means, mark your calendars, for April 16th, 2020, for the 3rd Annual Forum on Leadership. I also want to thank again our underwriters for tonight, our presenting sponsor, Pioneer Natural Resources, and our gala sponsor, Darren Woods and ExxonMobil. We couldn't do it without wonderful, wonderful supporters, and it's an honor that they've chosen to invest in our work. It's now my honor to turn over the microphone to Pioneer's Executive Vice President of Corporate Operations, Mark Berg.
Ken, thank you. President and Mrs. Bush, Mr. and Mrs. Gates, distinguished guests. It's my honor to represent Pioneer Natural Resources and our employees this evening, as well as our CEO, Scott Sheffield. It's also my honor to share this evening with these 4 great leaders who've benefited countless individuals across the globe. Both the Bush Institute and the Gates Foundation share a common mission to provide people in the United States and abroad the tools they need to help themselves. Education, healthcare, financial training, technology. Both of these organizations set an example for all of us. While most only identify complex problems, a few notable leaders harness solutions. Whether it's saving lives from preventable disease or advocating for freedom for all individuals, the Bush Institute and the Gates Foundation apply disruptive and a creative mindset to solve some of today's most challenging problems. Today, almost 1 billion people don't have access to electricity, and nearly 3 billion people still cook their food with wood, charcoal, dung, and often indoors. In some areas, access to proper education and health care is completely vacant. But thanks to the work of these compassionate leaders, that's now changing. Their work is helping to ensure that people across the world have access to these essential resources and find the path out of poverty. A critical ingredient to the path out of poverty is access to affordable energy. In the energy industry, companies like Pioneer and ExxonMobil are proud to play a small part in addressing this vital need. Innovation within the industry, such as horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing, have led to breakthroughs not only in how we produce energy, but also in dramatically reducing its costs. And we're still in the early innings in finding innovative ways to further reduce energy costs. These developments, together with lifting the oil export ban in 2015, has allowed U.S. energy to be shipped freely and affordably across the globe. And in a relatively short period of time, the United States has become the leading global producer and exporter of energy in the world. This strengthens not only the hand of the United States, but it also drives down energy costs. Low-cost, democratized energy has ushered in a new era for the developing world. Many of these countries have quite literally spent generations in the dark. Access to affordable energy is vital not only to fostering commerce, but for all aspects of modern life, including services like water treatment and health care, which makes poverty reduction possible and improves the quality of life. And as the U.S. leads in the world in energy production, we are also ever mindful of the effects of climate change and realize that it's critical that our industry respects our license to operate and carefully manages our environmental footprint. While innovation is no doubt changing the mix and source of energy in the world, hydrocarbons will remain an important part of that mix, and they should be produced in a cost-effective and environmentally responsible manner. Before I close, I'd like to share with you an initiative I suspect will be near and dear to the hearts of President and Mrs. Bush and many of my fellow Texans in the room here tonight. Pioneer and 20 industry partners recently formed the Permian Strategic Partnership, which is headquartered in Midland and chaired by Secretary Don Evans, who's with us here this evening. The Permian Basin in West Texas is at the heart of the United States reemergence as a global energy leader. But the communities in the Permian Basin have suffered the effects of boom and bust cycles for decades, leaving education, healthcare, housing, and roads in critical disrepair. The Permian Strategic Partnership aims to partner with local communities to address these challenges for families throughout the region. We're now working on our first initiative, which will bring 14 charter schools to the cities of Midland and Odessa. We're very grateful to Don Evans for his leadership. His passion is making this effort a reality. As I've heard him say many times, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to advance the United States as a global energy leader, but also improve the lives of West Texans. Don said it was an opportunity he couldn't pass up, and for that, we're very fortunate. But at the heart of the Permian Strategic Partnership is a focus that aligns with the mission of both the Bush Institute and the Gates Foundation, taking action to change lives for the better and philanthropy built on people and partnerships. In creating this partnership, industry is thinking globally but acting locally and following the example of these fine institutions. As Albert Einstein stated, setting an example is not the main means of influencing others, it's the only means. Pioneer Natural Resources is honored to support the Bush Institute, and we sincerely thank President Bush and Mrs. Bush and Mr. and Mrs. Gates for setting this example for all of us. Good evening.
In 1985, Genesis was started with the idea that a woman in crisis needed a place to go, an emergency shelter. That was it, a safe place for her and her children. And then when Jan came along a few years later, she said, this isn't enough. As a junior league volunteer, who she says wanted to do the least of all possible things without doing anything difficult, she read an article in a magazine about women being hit at home for doing nothing that was their fault. And she said, well, this isn't acceptable.
Domestic violence was a much deeper scourge and a much more troubling issue in this city than I could ever imagine.
We respond to about 3,000 hotline calls a year. These are women who say, you know, he's calling me, he's on his way over, he said this is it, he's going to kill me. Or it may be, I was assaulted last night and I can't do this anymore, or he's hurt my children.
When she saw the ills of these abused women that we had found in our shelter, she immediately connected that this was her ministry. This was her way to serve and be purposeful in life.
This room is a place where truly miracles happen. One of the most frightening things for moms as they grab their children and run in the night is where will they go to school? Where will they be in preschool? Who's going to take care of these babies while I'm trying to get a job or get a protective order? These children deserve a place where they can heal and where they can sleep and where they can learn. And so what we did is actually create the Simmons School here on site at Genesis.
She had a sense of our clinical needs, how to absolutely repair the broken lives that we were trying just to shelter, and that Genesis was more than shelter.
And it's how do we meet the needs of each person? Is it food? Is it shelter? Is it safety?
Sheltering moms and kids will never be enough. Abuse in this country will not stop until abusers stop abusing. We want to not only end it with that family, but particularly with the kiddos. We want to break that generational cycle of violence. We want them to know that hands are not for hitting it.
Organizationally, she's done a great job, but as a thought leader and a mission setter for this city and the country, she's really without peer.
She started the Conference on Crimes Against Women. It will be 14 years this year that we've had that conference with thousands of law enforcement people across the country, every state. We started that with the Dallas Police Department and the FBI. She is a dynamo. We often call her White Lightning. She's just, she is a force.
Jan inspires other people to follow her. She asks the best of people. She asks the best of the community. And she does it in a way where she applauds people when they accomplish those things.
We get letters from women thanking us for what we've done for them and for their children. We've had women who send a donation back saying, I want to give back to what you did for me. She just has that passion for what's right in this world.
I see her every day hugging the women that walk through our door. She is there all the time with encouragement, always looking for a way to better it, to improve the physical facility, but also the tenor, the culture. Jan is a living hug.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Laura Bush.
Good evening. I'm thrilled to present the Trailblazer Citation to Jan Langbein. For decades, Jan and her Genesis Women's Shelter have been giving women and children a safe haven during times of crisis. Under Jan's leadership, the Genesis Women's Shelter has grown from a 7-room emergency shelter to a full-service response system, helping over 3,700 women and children each year. Jan provides help, hope, courage, and a voice to survivors of domestic violence, and she inspires those of us around the world to do the same. In 2012, the Bush Institute brought our first class of women leaders from the Middle East, North Africa region to Dallas. These women, all from Egypt, visited exemplary institutions in Silicon Valley, New York, Washington, D.C., and Dallas. One of Dallas' stops was the Genesis Women's Shelter. Jan welcomed our Egyptian leaders with open arms and led them around the facilities. She shared the importance of a full-service response center for victims of domestic violence, many of whom were trying to escape terror in their own homes with not much more than the clothes on their backs and their precious children. After the visit, the Egyptian women reflected on Jan's unwavering commitment to protecting and empowering victims of domestic violence, and they revealed that in Egypt, a community response to domestic violence was unheard of. The time these Egyptian women spent with Jan inspired them to think about their own work back home, and encouraged them to consider creating similar support networks for women and children in their country. With her steadfast support, Jan continues to heighten the call for a zero-tolerance attitude toward domestic abuse. She's a prominent voice countrywide and even worldwide on efforts to protect vulnerable women around us. Jan is changing lives and saving lives, and she's making our community a better and safer place for women to call home. And for that, I'm grateful. Now I'm honored to present the George W. Bush Institute Trailblazer Citation to Jan Langbein. Please join me in congratulating her.
Oh my gosh, right? So I have to tell you a story. I was actually in Washington, D.C. last month, and I had spoken at the Office on Violence Against Women to some tribal folks, and I was riding back to the airport in an Uber, and the driver was a brand new American citizen. Well, you don't want to hang out with an American citizen unless you've really boned up on your history. He knows our Constitution. He knows Abraham Lincoln. He went on and on. He wanted to talk politics. He wanted to talk about our political divide. He wanted to talk, and in this conversation on the way back to the airport, he says, "Have you ever heard of PEPFAR?" He asked me if I knew what PEPFAR was, and of course you know it's the President's emergency plan for AIDS relief. And he said, almost with tears in his eyes, "President and Mrs. Bush saved the lives of my country." In Tanzania, I don't know if you know this, but you're called the daughter and the son of Tanzania. I don't know if you all knew that, right? The son and daughter of Tanzania. He said you all visited his country 2 times, and no president, no first lady has ever done that. And he said, "I am proud to be an American citizen." He said, to be in a country where the first lady and the president care about people on the other side of the world. And I have to tell you tonight, I'm proud to be an American citizen. I was proud to serve in your administration, President Bush. I am very proud to serve in a very small part, Mrs. Bush, with your incredible women's initiative and the First Lady's initiative, where all over the world we're talking about education and healthcare and economic opportunity for women. I am humbled by this. I am honored by this recognition. But I have to tell you, I don't deserve this by myself. I want to share this recognition this evening with my amazing family. I share this with my husband, who has put on a fundraising tuxedo more times than he's ever wanted to do. He has eaten more frozen Marie Callender dinners than any husband should have to. And I share this with my 2 amazing, strong, amazing daughters who don't remember a time when we had to talk about gender equality or women's empowerment. And now they teach their precious daughters, my flawless granddaughters, about being the safety girls. I share this with my mom and dad, who Dr. Turner actually met as they were students at SMU, and they taught me, "To whom much is given, much is also expected." I share this with the incredible staff of Genesis Women's Shelter, who day in and day out, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, answer the door to women, making a difference in the lives of tens of thousands of women and children. I share this with my board chair and my board of directors, who absolutely have believed in me and supported me for over 30 years. Laura Bush, First Lady of the United States of America, is often heard to say, "A society that fails to protect the rights of women is not a free society." She says, a democracy that allows half its population to be silenced by fear or violence or intimidation is not a democracy. You know, we've come so far in this country with regards to violence against women. We have conversations lately that we have never had before. before. We have passed the Violence Against Women Act and reauthorizations of that act, recognizing we have a national problem and addressing it with national solutions. But the statistics continue to be alarming. 1 out of every 3 women in this country will know domestic violence. Every 9 seconds in this country, a woman is assaulted. So we've come a long way, certainly, but we have a lot of work left to do. It reminds me of Dallas. I think Dallas is such an amazing city, but I think what makes us amazing is the dichotomy of this city and what we do to help those who can't help themselves. We can't have a great bridge in this city if, in fact, there are homeless men and women sleeping beneath it at night. We cannot have a state-of-the-art arts district, Mr. Mayor, if there's any woman or girl being sold into the degradation of human trafficking. We cannot have safe streets if we are not safe in our own homes. Last year, this country shared with you and Mrs. Bush the tremendous loss we shared in your grief with the passing of President 41 and the amazing First Lady Barbara Bush. And I think of the wonderful things they did, but I want to share with you a quote. President George Herbert Walker Bush once said that points of light are the soul of America. They are ordinary people who reach out beyond themselves to others in need, even a half a world away, giving hope and help and friendship and care. Mrs. Bush, President Bush, you are those points of light as you have reached out to help others. And I look around the room and I see this room full of points of light. You give help and you give hope. It is with that very hope and the clarity of my passion that I will continue to help create a community, help create a nation that realizes peace on earth begins at home. Thank you, Mr. President.